Okay, good evening. My name's Bob Connors. It's 6 p.m. and I'd like to call the February 4th meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Mason, please read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call of members present.
As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferret, Conservation Agent of the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the February 4th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer,
Yes.
TJ Conti,
Nope.
Mick Brown,
Here.
Diane O'Brien,
Yes.
Woody Knight,
Yes.
Bob Connors,
Yes,
and Frank Wettenkamp is not here. Good evening. This open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the agenda of the Conservation Commission section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and or share information to the screen if able on the fly. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and after they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board and committee members should be called upon in a first name alphabetical order to ease the process. After board and committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will seek questions through the chat function. When the participants are using this function, please list your name, address, and your question. The chair will then seek questions from the public who wish to speak. They will be asked to identify their names and addresses, question, and once the chair has a list of all the public commentators, they will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote.
okay, thank you, Mason. All right, team, upcoming meeting dates, February 18th and March 4th. We have meeting minutes review for our January 21st, 2025 meeting. Why don't we take a moment to review, see if we have any comments, corrections, or concerns. Okay, hearing none, does anyone need any more time? I don't want to be
Nope,
presumptuous here. Okay.
Finished it now.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 21st as written.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. Woody, that's you?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Okay, roll call vote. All in favor. Mary?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick? Mick, you're on.
I'm
you're on
on
mute.
mute. Yes.
Diane?
Yes. Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, next matter is a request for determination of applicability. MBTA right-of-way operated by Keolis Commuter Services on behalf of the MBTA and Keolis is submitting a request to determine the applicability, reviewing wetland maps along the railroad right-of-way. This is a part of a 5-year vegetation management plan and will highlight all the areas of the rail that will be treated. Maps and treatment procedures are outlined in the RDA project narrative. Mason, can you give us an overview on this and introduce any speakers for the...
Yep, so this is a RDA for vegetation management control for 2026 to 2030 for nuisance and invasive vegetation removal in the right-of-way of the commuter rail. And I would just recommend that Matt, I believe Matt's here, recommend that he walk us through the proposed maps and plans.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt Donovan from Benish. I'm here representing Keolis for this RDA. As you have already stated, this is a 5-year renewal process, so we come to your commission every 5 years with the same RDA. The vegetation management plan itself will be submitted to the state, the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources later this year. This RDA process is required to happen before with all the different towns that the railroad runs through. So that's why we're here. I can share my screen as well if you want me to pull up the maps. That might be a
that'd be
good
great.
idea.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think I'm trying to do it right now.
Don't let that technology beat you.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but I think I'm just waiting for permission.
See if that works.
Okay. Do you see? Okay, here we
That's
go.
your co-host, yep.
Okay. So can you see my screen now?
No.
Yeah, no, sorry.
There we go.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, here is the map that was included in the RDA. And I will actually, we shared a website with you as well. That has all the different vegetation management information you'd need, which including the vegetation management plan, the yearly operational plan, and the maps for every town. So I have your town pulled up here. Oops. Sorry. So to describe these maps, as you can see, there's blue and yellow zones along the railroad tracks. The yellow zones are the strictest form of restrictions, and all these restrictions are in the CMR 11.04 regulations to protect the sensitive areas along the railroad. The most common restrictions are within a certain buffer zone of wetlands. So the yellow zones are when you are within a 10-foot buffer from wetlands, and the blue zones are a 100-foot buffer from wetlands. So in these yellow zones, typically they only receive treatment directly down onto the track. And in certain cases, although rare, when the sensitive area boundary is within 12 feet of the rail, no mixture will be applied at all. In the blue zones, these zones will only receive application once every 12 months as in conformance with the regulations. In these zones, the environmental monitor, and I should have started, there is an environmental monitor in the truck with the spray applicator equipped with these maps when they're doing the application, and they're familiar with the site conditions, so they will be on alert in these blue zones to keep an eye out for any standing water. So they would direct the applicator to turn the spray off in these areas when they get to areas that have any standing water in the ditches or anything in these blue zones. So we're asking for just an approval for these maps, and typically we have gotten a -2 approval from your commission, and that is what we're asking for again. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, so Matt, what time of year do you typically do this?
The roadbed applications happens in the May timeframe, anytime from May to June. We send your commission the yearly operational plan every year via certified mail, and it it details exactly when that will happen. And it's weather dependent, so anywhere in that time frame is when we have the applicator ready to be on site.
Matt, why don't you hold there? Let me open this up to questions from the members. Mary, do you have any questions for Matt on
Um,
this submittal?
Yes, thanks, Bob. Just a couple. Do some of the towns require notice of intents for this, or is this typical to do it as an RDA?
No, it's required by the state to do it as an RDA to get the approval for these maps.
Okay.
Any work beyond the scope would sometimes require notice of intent. We've done notices of intents for culverts or any more in,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, are there time of year restrictions from either Division of Marine Fisheries or Natural Heritage for this spraying through rare species habitat?
Not that I know of. We do submit the yearly operational plans and these maps to the NHESP every year for their review, and we get their approval. As far as timeline, it's the same timeline every year for the roadbed and brush application. So I'd imagine that's definitely when it's most beneficial to do. I'm not aware of any restrictions from them.
Likely be a later time anyway. If you do it in May and June, it probably won't conflict with breeding and nesting habitat for most of the species that are going to be listed in this where you're crossing. So this is mostly herbicide application or mechanical control or both.
These maps are for chemical
Just
application.
chemicals. Okay. Okay. I don't have any more
Okay.
questions.
All right, I'll circle back, Mary, too, if anything else comes up. Woody, any questions for Matt on this proposed project?
No, I don't have any questions, Bob. Thanks. Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
for your presentation.
Nick, how about yourself? Any questions for Matt on this project?
Yeah, just, I think kind of building off what Mary was asking. So this is an application of a non-selective herbicide, right?
Yeah, all the herbicides that they use are on the approved sensitive area material list provided by the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. And each year the mixture is selected, is made up by the actual applicator himself in conjunction with Keolis, obviously, and they create a program to include in the yearly operational plan. It switches up a little bit every year, but it's always from the approved sensitive area material list.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
actual,
and non-selective, I mean, it's a non-selective herbicide. It's gonna kill any vegetation.
right, yeah.
So that has to be applied on like active leaf material. It's not a systemic where it's applied to the ground and then absorbed through root systems and things of
No,
that.
it does get applied to the ground and it is absorbed by the roots.
Okay.
It's foliar. It's a foliar spray.
Right.
Well, systemics may not necessarily be a foliar spray, but
That's what it looks like they're describing here.
okay, so it's got to be absorbed by the foliage. Are there follow-ups? Like, I know, so what I'm envisioning is you do this one-time application. Is there continuous, like, is there follow-ups like 6 weeks later or 10 weeks later, something like that?
Yeah, so there for the roadbed portion in the blue zones, they can only be in the blue and yellow. Any sensitive area can only receive one treatment per year.
Okay.
So there's no second treatment in these blue and yellow zones where the wetlands are. In areas that aren't restricted in a white zone, which I just scrolled through your maps and you don't have any white zones, which would be a restriction-free zone. They would do follow-ups there and they would do brush spray there, which targets vegetation for like away from the roadbed. But in your town, they won't be doing any additional follow-ups because it's all blue or yellow zones.
So is a follow-up maybe mechanical, or, you know, you come out and do actual manual removal?
Yeah, if there's anywhere that requires it to keep a distinct right of way, they might need to come and do some mechanical.
Yeah, and this is historic. I mean, this is not something, this is not a first time run through here. Like, you've continued to, this is a continuation of an annual program, correct?
Yes, it's an annual program.
And you said you have someone on board, so basically this is being applied by a vehicle on the rail,
Correct.
like a spray truck on the.
Yeah. Yeah, and
then-
the spray truck, the applicator has been the same applicator that's been on site for, I think, 20 plus years with Keolis, so they know the property pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. And so you have some, like, whether that's that applicator, you mentioned you have somebody that's there to recognize sensitive areas or open water that'll stop, you'll stop application in the presence of open water.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that person is typically a employee of Keolis's environmental team. It has sometimes been a consulting engineer, but I think right now is typically an employee of Keolis.
So it's some type of certified or competent, like relatively competent person.
Right. They're familiar with the site conditions and they have the maps on hand. So they're looking ahead and know what's coming up.
Cool. All right. No, thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mick. Diane, questions for Matt on this matter?
No, thank you.
Okay, so Matt, couple of questions. The previous filing was for how many years? The RDA, was it 3 or 5 years? Was it 5 year?
It's a 5-year plan, yeah. So under the determination, where the signatures page is, it says these
You're right,
determinations are made for 3 years, except for a vegetation management plan renewal, which is for 5
Okay.
years.
Okay. And what variance is there between the previous RDA and the one that's being presented today? Are there any changes in scope, chemicals, or layout?
No, I mean the only changes, if there was any changes with the approved chemicals list at a state level, I think they review that every couple of years and make little changes. I know Keolis has since the last 5 years, they've totally they don't spray any glyphosate anymore, so they don't choose that. I know there are glyphosate chemicals on the approved list, but they've made a vow to not use any glyphosate products. Other than that, though, I think it's just it's the same work. It's pretty much, if you look at the RDA, it's very similar to what we submitted in 2020.
Okay, I have no further questions. Mary, I'm going to circle back with you to see if you had any follow-up questions.
I don't.
Okay. Mason, do you have any questions for Matt?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, do we have any, are there any raised hands from the public at this time? Okay, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to issue a negative finding for the MBTA right-of-way herbicide treatment as a -2.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, thank you, Woody.
-2. Is that what you're requesting?
That's what
-3.
Matt had requested.
Okay,
You requested a -2, Matt? That's what I had written down.
Yeah, we've typically gotten -2 or -5. -5, you would have to list the exemptions, but your commission has always given a -2,
okay.
which is perfectly fine.
Okay. Okay, any other further discussion before I take a roll call? Okay, roll call vote, all in favor. Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
reluctantly, I should say.
yes,
yeah, Mick,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll quickly run through enforcement orders. 30 Riverview Drive, that has been issued a negative determination. The enforcement order was left open just as a precaution to ensure vegetation does get done. So no further action on this. Okay, we have on 108 Main Street, we issued a we issued an enforcement order regarding the permit had expired that as the applicant had waited for the tolling agreement to come into play. That has been reinstated. And so the enforcement order was two-part. One was to refresh or renew or refile a notice of intent. The second part of it was to inspect, refresh, or repair erosion or sedimentation control. So the first part of the enforcement order has been satisfied that under the tolling agreement, the permit is automatically extended to 12/8/25. And I see Maureen Harold. Maureen, I'm going to let you go on from there.
Hi, everyone. This is Maureen Harold from Norse Environmental Services. Here with me tonight is John Colantoni. He is the applicant and the owner of the property. So as the chairman has mentioned, the tolling period has now extended the permit itself. So the permit is still valid. The enforcement order had requested that the erosion controls be refreshed out on site. Some of that has been done, but not the entire property. Which is something we're gonna plan on doing in the springtime, especially given the fact that the permit's been extended under the tolling period. So as part of the enforcement order or the request, we're requesting the commission to lift the enforcement order. Because now that the permit is still active, and obviously before we start work, all of the remaining erosion controls that need to be refreshed, they'll be refreshed, reinstalled. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Maureen. Mary, why don't I start with you? Questions for Maureen on this is going to be a two-part. We have an enforcement order, then there's a request for extensions that'll be coming later on in the meeting. So this is
Okay.
regarding the enforcement order.
So if the permit is still in effect and they, then I don't have any problem lifting the enforcement order. And it sounds like they're not gonna be able to complete the work within the current, even with the permit extension, you won't be able to complete the work in time. So you need a further extension, is that correct?
Yes, that's what we're requesting,
Okay.
commission this evening as well.
Okay, then I'm fine,
Okay.
thank
All
you.
right. Woody, any questions for Maureen on the enforcement order part of the meeting tonight?
No, I don't have any questions on the enforcement order. Thank you.
Okay, Mick, any questions for Maureen on the enforcement order?
Not on the enforcement order, no. All set.
Thank you. Diane, how about yourself? Any questions for Maureen on the enforcement order?
Nope.
Okay, and I have no questions. I will entertain a motion to close the enforcement order for 108 Main Street.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
yes.
Mick, Diane,
Yes.
Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, Maureen, thank you. You're gonna be coming up pretty quickly here.
may I
Okay,
make a suggestion,
Yeah.
Bob,
Certainly.
that Mason provide a letter to the applicant stating what the vote was tonight, so we have, it'll be in the minutes, obviously, but
Right.
so there's a written record of the decision for the
Yeah.
for the applicant, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Chrissy and Mason have drafted a letter, a template that they've been using when these have been lifted.
Saying the enforcement order is lifted, and- okay,
Right, that
Okay.
reciting the meeting, the vote, and the
Okay.
date.
perfect.
great,
But-
thank you.
Okay, right, we have another enforcement order. Again, it's just open, doesn't require any action tonight, 62 Middle Road. That's being continued to May 25th. And we'll, at the May 25th meeting, we'll review planting success. Okay, Maureen, we're back to you. Extension request, DEP will file, DEP file number 0501312 through 1326. It's 108 Main Street. The applicant is submitting an extension request for lots 1 through 5 and the road work on the proposed development. Murray, why don't you give us a presentation?
Sure. So with the permit extension, it is valid until December 8th of this year, 2025. And would like to request a 3-year extension. I spoke to my client, Mr. Colantoni, and the game plan is to begin work in the springtime, early summer, and get this project going. So can open it up to the commission for some discussion.
Okay. Mason, you've reviewed the, Maureen, thank you. You provided a cover letter which gave us kind of a synopsis of the tolling and your request. Mason, do you have any questions or concerns on the extension request?
No, none at this time. I would just say that I would recommend that the erosion controls be fully intact and put in place before work start again in the spring.
Yeah, we would expect, Maureen, that John would contact the agent, prior to actually starting work again, and just do a pre-construction site walk.
We can do that. That's not a problem.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to open this up to members. Mary, any questions for Maureen or on this project?
Yes, so I'm gonna make a suggestion that since the permit doesn't expire until almost a year from now, and they're requesting another 3 years, in addition to the extension under the Permit Extension Act and the original 3 years of the permit, that's a long time from the inception of this project. Wetland boundaries change, things happen, the site conditions can be different. We don't know right now. I would feel more comfortable in seeing this project a little further along and finding that it's stable at the time the permit is due to expire to decide on whether to issue an extension and for how many years. So I think it's, I don't think we need to act on it right now. And I think it would be simple enough for Maureen to come back in October and just say, here's the work we've done. The site is stable. Just want to, I don't think that the commission has a particular objection if everything is in accordance with the original issued order. But I'm concerned about just extending this way out into the future without any eyes on it at all for a long time. So.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Woody, any comments on this?
I don't have any questions. My comment would be, I kind of agree with Mary. We get things rolling here and then come back to the extension.
Okay.
It makes sense. That makes sense to me. This has been open for a long time.
Okay, but I just want to remind everybody, the regulation simply states that the applicant is entitled to an extension as long as it's submitted 30 days prior to expiration. There was no limit on how early you could file that.
Correct,
So
but they're
I'm
not,
not sure.
they're not necessarily, it's not a by right thing. The commission can say no. A lot of commissions do. So.
Well, it's a first extension tip. I mean, I know what you're saying,
You
Mary,
don't
that
have to
it's
issue
all
it.
in.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
it's depending on what the site conditions are and
Mhm.
if regulations have changed, they want to take another look at it. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying our custom and practice has been on every other extension that if it was submitted 30 days prior to expiration, we would entertain extending it, and it's been for 3 years. Our bylaw says 3 years for Plum Island. We have a little more discretion on the rest of Newbury, but it's not covered by the bylaw. Diane, what's your thoughts on this?
No, I did have a question of when it started to run and whether it was by right, because I know that I've always kind of, we've traditionally just said yes if it's their first extension request, but if the applicant's okay coming back in October, then that's fine with me.
Our wetland bylaw actually says that if the applicant submits it prior to 30 days, we shall extend. It
But I
wasn't might.
thought it was a shall and
that-
not a
But
may.
but that's on the,
Our
that's on
bylaw
the
doesn't
format.
apply to this site, yeah, and it's
No,
just. state
but we'd
regs,
like
it
to be
says may.
consistent. I think we want to be consistent in how we address things, but
Yep.
that's just my opinion. And, you know, the
It's a minor, minor issue.
consistency is always a big factor in me. If we're gonna make a homeowner come in and do a site plan, have a wetland delineation, and the like.
This is a big project, though. This
Oh,
is
yeah, no, no, I know, no,
lots,
Mary,
so-
but it's an approved subdivision, and if they vary, we can always do an enforcement order, so it's just. I guess we look through different lenses on this. Okay, what's our pleasure here? I'll be honest, I think they're entitled as a matter of fact and by custom and practice to the extension. But that's my opinion. And what's the pleasure of the board? And Maureen, do you want to respond? Why don't you do this? You've heard the debate and, you know, and all good valid points.
Right. We were hoping to come in tonight with the request for the extension since we were here to lift the enforcement order. If the commission is more comfortable with us coming back in the fall, we can do that.
Maureen, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, through you, if I may. I don't know if this is something that's
Hey,
allowed or not.
John, do me a favor, please identify yourself and your address.
I'm sorry. John
the record.
Colantoni, the owner and developer, and I live in 342 Linebrook in Ipswich. What I wanted to ask, October will be here in a snap of a finger. Is it possible as a compromise? I totally respect the board's opinion, where, can we extend it till December of 2026? Hopefully we won't need to extend it again, but if we did, then we'd have to come in at least 30 days before for the commission to review. Is that something that's allowed or possible to request that?
I mean, the board can entertain, any request. I view it, John, that you're entitled to one extension. Beyond that point, it's solely at the discretion of the board, of the commission. And many boards and many commissions frown upon multiple extensions. So, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to come in and ask us for a 1 year to consider a 1 or 2 year extension versus the 3, we can discuss that. Or you can follow Maureen's advice, which is come back in September and see where you're at. And maybe at that point, the 1 year extension or a 2 year extension. You never know what the economy is going to do. And I'm just speaking as a developer myself. So you just never know what the market or the economy or supply chain issues are going to do. But
So just so I understand this correctly, if we ask for the extension for until December of 2026, just so we don't have to come back in the fall or it's so soon, we're jeopardizing that if we had to do another extension and we come back 30 days before that, sometime in 2026, that now because we used one extension, that it's possible for the commission to say no, where it's more difficult for the commission to say no if we haven't asked for any extension yet.
the overall time you've had a permit, John, is your 3 years expired. You picked up probably another 18 months on the tolling. So you're at 4.5, almost 5 years. And then one extension, you're over 6 years. So to assume that a second extension would be automatic, is it possible? It certainly is, if you present an argument. But it becomes far more discretionary than the first extension, at least in my opinion, but. So Maureen, John, what do you want to do? Do you want
John,
to come back?
yeah, I think we should come back in the fall and then we can provide the commission with an update and the status of the project and move forward. That's my recommendation, John.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So Maureen, why don't you do this? Why don't you just pick out, we publish our meeting dates through the end of the year. Uh, why don't you pick out a date in advance and have Mason flag it so that it'll wind up on the agenda and it's not going to be a slip through the cracks, so to speak.
Great idea. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Where this isn't a public hearing on an extension request, this matter will be continued to a date certain down the road. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
Okay, next matter is a certificate of compliance, a DEP file number 050-1427, 1 Main Street. Applicant is requesting a partial certificate of compliance. The construction of a single-family dwelling has been completed, as well as the installation of a driveway and a septic system. The only remaining portion of the project is obtaining full vegetative cover in previously disturbed areas. Mason, can you give us an update? You did a site inspection on this, as I recall.
Yep, yeah, I was able to go see the site with the developer. They had also submitted an as-built letter and plan, both of which had highlighted the only minor change, which was the installation of a propane tank, and that was on the far side of the house, completely out of the buffer zone. All the other work on the property was only within the buffer zone. And from viewing the site and reviewing the plan, the only thing that they have left is to achieve kind of full vegetative cover in the backyard, where they had already tried to seed in the fall, but it just didn't come in how they anticipated. And I believe Craig is here. He can speak on behalf of the as-built plan. And as he does so, I can share photos from the site walk that I conducted.
Okay, Craig, good evening. Just identify yourself and your position and give us your presentation.
Good evening, Craig Marchanda and Associates. We're the engineers representing the applicant on this project. I think Mason did a great job summarizing the status. As he mentioned, the applicant and developer decided to forego grabbing natural gas in the street and instead did a propane tank, which is approximately 130 feet from the resource area. And then, as Mason also stated, we just don't have good, stabilized cover in the backyard yet. So I think they get in time before the colder weather hits. So that's on their list first thing in the spring. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's about all I have.
Mason, do you have pictures? Why don't you just illuminate some of your pictures and then I'll open it up to questions from the members.
Are they not up right now? Sorry.
Well, you know what? They're up, but they're not expanded.
Gotcha.
So I think you're gonna have to double click on them or. No, we lost your pictures. So far, this Newbury.gov is not that exciting for the public or the commission members.
Getting the best of me.
Yeah,
You guys see everything now?
yeah, but again, they're not expanded.
Your cursor's right on top of it. Just
Yeah,
double click and see if it comes up.
Yeah, on my screen I have it expanded. Give me a second.
Yeah, they're just the thumbnails.
Here we go.
You could describe them to us.
There we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a good
snow.
view. Well, I think what this demonstrates is there's no debris, tree or other, other spoils that's on site. Yeah, if you can just click on all those, Mason, and I think it's you have one on the front yard?
Yep. 1 second.
Oh, that's probably outside of jurisdiction anyway, though. Okay. All right, why don't I open this up to questions from the members? Mary, questions for Craig on this one?
Yeah, just wondering if there's any particular reason for requesting a partial versus just waiting till the spring? Is there some urgency for financing or for any other issue that would allow you to defer until the site is complete?
It's a good question, Mary. Our client reached out last week looking to do this as he's nearing completion of the house. He's going to be looking for occupancy, and I believe Newbury is one of the few towns that will issue occupancy without a COC. But he just wants to check as many boxes as he can, have this thing as close to done. And I think the only condition from our order that we're missing is the very last one, I believe number 54, regarding complete stabilization of disturbed areas. So he just wants to get it as seller ready and just feel confident going in for an occupancy permit that there would be, no issue.
So it's for sale. That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Mary?
No, I would just say if we do vote to issue a partial, that I would suggest that we pick a date for closing it, sometime in July, say, or something,
Mhm.
schedule it on a meeting later
Yep.
this spring.
Good point. And, we'll identify that right on the partial certificate, what's
Okay.
remaining and when we anticipate they'll come back in for a full. Woody, any questions for Craig on this matter?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your
Nick?
presentation.
Mick, any questions? on
I'm
this?
sorry, I didn't have the time to look into the details on this one, but what is the date of expiration on the existing order of conditions?
That I can check. Give me 1 second.
I want to say it,
May, maybe. Let's see. I can pull it up here. So the order was issued on, it looks like May 13th of 24. So we have a few years.
So you got till 27.
Yes.
No. Yeah, okay. Just wondered, again, my biggest question is why the partial right now? So I think Mary asked that question, so I'm good for now, Bob. Thanks.
We have
Thanks,
5
Craig.
years
Okay.
to complete. Yep.
You're welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions on this one for Craig?
No, thank you.
Okay, and so Craig, I mean, typically partial certificates are usually driven by the bank or real estate when you're listing it. And it closes out all the steps except for remaining one for a potential buyer. Okay, do any members have a request for a site visit or additional information on this request?
No,
Okay. Are there any hands raised from the public at this time? Okay. I will entertain the motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with a date certain mentioned on when we expect them back before us for a full CO. Nick?
Yeah, quick question, Bob and Craig. What conditions are we approving in the partial?
Everything but full vegetative cover in previously disturbed areas.
Okay.
That's
thanks.
the only thing we're waiting on, Craig. That
Yeah,
will be
so-
listed. That will not be included, obviously, in the CO. or the,
Yes.
partial. Okay. Mason, when do you think, Craig, obviously they're gonna want to wrap this up. Why don't we put down the first meeting of May? You think that'd be adequate time to expect you guys to come back in for a full COC?
Might be a bit early.
Yeah,
Okay, June?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Craig, pick it, you can do it, call it September if you want. It just, I think Mary's point is, we just don't want to have it drag on. It gets recorded as a partial, then there's no, it becomes,
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to call it anytime in June, let's say, and we can certainly be in touch with the commission if we feel like we need more time, or we
okay,
can let you know, but
okay.
that should work.
Okay, why don't we incorporate the second meeting in June, Mason?
Yep, that'll be June
Uh,
17th.
Okay.
Perfect.
June 17th. Reappear for a certificate of compliance, full certificate. And the exclusion will be on the vegetative cover and previously disturbed areas will be an open item. Okay. I will entertain a motion to issue a partial certificate with the above referenced conditions.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second. All right. Road call, all in favor, Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Okay, continue public hearings. DEP file number 0501436, 286 High Road to construct an addition to the existing single-family dwelling with associated utilities and expanded driveway within a 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh area. Mason, what's the status of this?
Bill had reached out. He's going to be submitting a plan by Thursday for the meeting on the 18th, and he has explained that the project has been drastically scaled back to the removal of the existing barn, to replace the old foundation with the new foundation, and to rebuild the barn and remodel the interior. He's making the final adjustments to the plans now, and like I said, he should be submitting by Thursday for the following meeting.
Okay, so did he have a specific date that he wanted this continued to?
He for the
18th or the
Yep.
March?
Yep, for the 18th meeting.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the members on this? Okay. I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to our February 18th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
second,
Second? Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
yes,
Woody,
yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yeah.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Mason, you did mention to Bill that if it goes much beyond another continuance, that he's gonna be probably required to re-advertise and renotice, the abutters,
Yep.
just because this has been going on for, it'll be almost a half a dozen months at that point, so. All right, next order of business, a continued public hearing, DEP file number 0501442, Locken Road Dam Removal. Gomez and Sullivan have submitted a notice of intent for ecological restoration project off of Locken Road. The project involves removing the Locken Dam to restore fish runs, and major project elements include removing the dam, installing stone scour protecting the I-95 bridge, and removing a small existing weir upstream. The project team and partners have completed all regulatory reviews in preparation. Mason, where are we at on this?
So from the last meeting, it seems like the commission was just waiting on them to get their 401 water quality certification from the state, and it sounds like that they're anticipating getting that this month. So when that comes in, they're gonna plan on coming back and hopefully closing everything out.
Okay, so did they request a continuance?
Yep, they're gonna be requesting to continue until the February 18th meeting, and then they'll be checking in before that to let me know if they've received the 401 yet.
Okay. All right, any questions from the members?
I can just make a comment that I spoke with the DEP reviewer who's doing the 401 review
Yes,
on another project, and he mentioned this project, and he said he told them to go ahead and get the order of conditions first, that he wanted to be last. So in any event, I don't think it matters to us. We can issue the order of conditions. I think we were ready to at the last meeting, but according to him, there's nothing stopping us from issuing it. So
okay. Well, why don't we do this? Are there any additional questions from the members? Let me go around and then we'll see if there's any questions from the public. And then Mary, if you want to make a motion, I think we'll entertain a motion.
well, if they're not here and they've requested a continuance, I don't think we can close it. That's
Yeah.
really. I mean, I would say continue it to the next meeting because I don't feel
Okay.
comfortable closing it without somebody saying that that's what they want to do, because they may have reasons other than what I know about.
If I may, Bob, I think that they're also planning on addressing questions that were brought up by the Byfield Water District as well.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Nope, good-
I
good
think they
point.
want to plan on addressing that, with public ears at the next meeting as well.
Okay. All right, so Mary, any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, Woody, any questions or comments on this?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Mick, how about yourself? Any questions or comments?
No question, comments. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, how about yourself? Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, I do not have any questions or comments. I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to our February 18th, 2025 meeting at the applicant's request.
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? I love when you guys are in unison like that. It just makes, I can just write a D and a W on my sheet here.
And TJ's not here today, so.
Yeah, it's easier to write a W than a
Yeah.
TJ. So
Woody has stepped up.
I know it. Okay, roll call, all in favor, Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, Mason. Okay, now the next matter is we have it's a Mason, did DEP issue a number on 173 Hay Street, Kent's Island?
I can check right
I
now.
think not.
Yeah, I didn't see it this morning when I looked, but
Nope, I'm not seeing it now.
okay. All right, so we have a notice of intent for 173 Hay Street, Kent's Island. The Division of Fisheries and Wildlife is submitting a notice of intent for ecological restoration limited project for habitat restoration work at the William Forward Wildlife Management Area. Management techniques include invasive plant control, general vegetation control, prescribed fire, and timber harvest. Project documents include maps of the project area. Mason, can you give us an overview on this? And I see Ben's on the screen, so we'll let him make his presentation after you add your overview.
Yeah, so I think you covered the basic part of it in the preliminary thing. But I would just add that I attended a DEP training for forest servicery and how the commission should be handling that. And one of the recommended procedures was to request a site walk with a service forester to have them go over the plan on site. So that would be my only recommendation is to have that. So I can get some eyes on site and then maybe some of the commission members as well.
Okay, great. Ben, good evening. If you want to make a presentation, walk us through this project, just give us your
Certainly.
name and your position.
Sure. Ben Mazii, I'm a habitat biologist with Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. And I just would add to what Mason just brought up, the forest cutting plan. The majority of the forestry that we're talking about has already been approved by the DCR Service Forester. So that most of that is all outside of anything that would be considered resource area. So just a heads up. I don't know if that came to you already, Mason, or not, but that's been approved. So, so this project's for Kent Island. I can pull up a map here if I can share my screen.
Yeah, please do.
Is that good for everybody?
It's still loading. I think it's still loading, Ben. There we go.
Good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Kent Island is a bunch of oak flats that are surrounded by salt marsh. We have an access road that goes out to the island. And it's been essentially, the fields there have been hayed, and the salt marsh surrounding the island has been hayed by a local farmer under lease for as far as I can remember. It's actually the neighbor that lives just before the access road. So what we're proposing to do there's essentially three things that we would like approval for. So treating all the invasives across the island. So some of that does include the wetland resource areas on the island, freshwater areas. I have them on the map with buffer zones around those. And then limited, so there's plantations on the island. There's planted red pine and Norway spruce. So most of the areas of those plantations are across the island are slated to be removed. Most of that's covered under the forest cutting plan, except for these two yellow areas would be in the buffer zone. So we're seeking permission to remove those portions of the plantations there. And then within this yellow polygon, around some of these smaller islands and then the main island itself, we're seeking permission to be able to utilize low intensity prescribed fire across that area. And so it would not all be burned at once, but that's the general footprint of what we might burn. We try to limit any impact to the salt marsh because the salt marsh sparrow, but essentially we would need to be able to hold the fire to maintain it on the island. There's a bunch of ditches and canals that are all dug to drain the salt marsh for the haying and previous agricultural stuff. So essentially around the island, that yellow polygon boundary would allow us to, if we needed to, burn to some of those ditches just to hold the fire on the island. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody's been on the island recently. It's a mess in a lot of areas with invasive plant species. Some areas you can't even walk through. So this is the ecological restoration to promote priority natural communities. Warm season grasslands are going to be in the areas around the current fields and in some of the areas of the plantations for grasshopper sparrow and other species that use warm season grasses. And then the fire will promote oak. There's a lot of really beautiful hickory. There's pitch pine on the island as well. And so those are all disturbance dependent species. So we'll utilize that. There's a burn plan. We follow like the federal standards for burn plans. So that's already been approved. We've already met with the fire department and the chief. We have not implemented any fire on that island yet, but we hope to in the coming years. So that's sort of the synopsis of what I have.
Okay. Why don't I open this up to questions from the members? Mary, questions for Ben on this project?
Yes, so I would like to do a site visit on this. I think that it's a big enough project that it would be good to get eyes on it and fully understand, you know, the areas that you're intending to work. I'm having a hard time translating this plan, you know, which is just like a GIS based plan with the actual work areas that you're going to be working in. So it would be great to have a more detailed plan that shows what you're proposing to do, where, and what's the list of invasives that you're intending to target and where, and what control methods are you using and where. So I think that we just still need a little bit more detail so that we understand what it is that we are regulating. Because right now it's kind of the whole site and a suite of potential control methods, but and somewhat of a partial list of invasives. So I think it's a great project and I'm very supportive of it and want to see it happen. I don't know how you get out to like some of the islands, and I know that if there's Phragmites control or work in the wetland itself, that we want to be really careful about making sure we understand what that work is and what methods are allowable. These wetlands that are shown on the GIS maps are just blobs. I mean, they're not 100% accurate. So it's important for the people that are doing this work to understand where the wetlands are, if they're different from these maps. And so they would have to be flagged somehow or other before this work is done. So you know you're going to use a different control method in the buffer zone or in the wetland than you are in other areas of the upland. So I think a site visit and some more plan detail would be really helpful on my end.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Yeah, so Ben, typically on all previous NOI filings, the commission would receive a site plan with a wetland delineation and flagging and existing versus proposed work. And I think to restate Mary's, request, I don't think we've ever issued an NOI without it. And if there wasn't one filed with an application, the technical review would cite that it was needed on an NOI for a simple work in a residential house. So that's one concern I have. What are the invasives that are being treated?
You can go through I can name them all that we're aware of out there, but pretty much everything that we don't want is there. Stuff that's pretty common across the site would be Oriental bittersweet, multiflora rose, burning bush, buckthorn. Some of there was, I think, spotted knapweed there this summer, but that was outside of the purview of the resource areas. That was treated, I think, in the fields. Yeah, so there's a
Phragmites, are there any Phragmites stands
so
in the?
there is some Phragmites. I think I don't. Can you see when I move my cursor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there is some Phragmites maybe off of this island. That wouldn't be initially what we would target at this point. We're pretty much mainly focusing on the invasives on Kent Island, just because that's
Gotcha.
our largest area. So as far as techniques to treat, we will. So the reason the plan I gave, and so there's a narrative that came with it that essentially describes techniques that we would potentially use. And because can you all see this now? So there is invasive plant control in the narrative that I sent. There's descriptions on all the techniques that we might utilize. And at this point, because I don't know who's going to be doing the invasive plant control, some of it will be done in-house, but we may also have the ability to hire somebody to do some of that work. And so the difference between of what they would do in the buffer zone and in the actual resource area would all typically be either a cut stem or it would be a foliar application, all with sensitive area approved materials. And so that would be the areas that are on the main island. The Phragmites, depending on if we decide to tackle that, we have the potential to use like a marsh master, which is I don't know if you guys have seen the marsh masters before, but they're utilized. Nantucket uses them to treat some of the frag that they do out there. They're low pressure machines that can carry the chemicals out to where they need to be applied, and then they utilize that. And so yes, I don't know if the commission has had a chance to look through the narrative, but it describes in pretty good detail what we potentially might use to treat the invasives on the islands. Pulling, flame weeding, biological control is not something that we do a whole lot of, but we listed it there just to show in case that is something that we would like to do. And this talks about the amphibious vehicle stuff. So,
I think the narrative was very detailed, Ben. The question we always have is, without having a site plan with more specific detail, when we come out to do an inspection at the request for a certificate of compliance, we don't have a hard baseline to compare to what was proposed, what the variance, the usual, you've heard it all before, the usual stuff.
sure. So just so I'm clear, what the commission would need from me in order to get a better understanding. So each individual freshwater resource area, you'd want to know what I'm treating and how I'm going to be treating it in there. Is that?
If I could jump in.
Yeah, Mary,
Yes,
why
a
don't you
map
do?
of- usually what I do in these situations is you do a vegetation map and it, a plant community map. Okay, in this area, we've got buckthorn mixed in with blah, 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 whatever other else it is. And then we can say, control area 1, and we're going to use these suite of methods to control that particular area. It doesn't have to be it still can be GPS based map. It doesn't have to be a survey professional license survey plan, but a little more detailed mapping, where are the hotspots, where are the problems that you know that you're gonna need. And it might be hard, challenging in this kind of site where almost all of it has something. But maybe there's a way to categorize it and then tie that to one of the control methods in your narrative so that we know what is being proposed where. And then what is the long-term maintenance? Like, this is not a one and done thing, so I'm assuming you're going to be doing follow-up controls after.
Oh,
after
yeah,
completing
yeah.
this. Yeah, and we don't have any detail on that either, so.
Sure, I can get the commission that, if anybody's been out there, you can tell, as we open up some of these plantation areas, the seed bed is going to be exposed, so it's going to be quite the journey, but, yeah, so we're
Great that
committed.
the state wants to tackle this. It's it'll be a really nice property, and so we want to support you in this effort, I think, but just we gotta get a handle on what it is that we're regulating, so.
Okay, so we can schedule a site visit if that's what the commission likes. I can make up maps with details on each area and give an assessment of what's there and how we're going to treat it. Is that?
Yes.
Okay, let me move on. Let's see other questions we have. Woody, questions for Ben on this project?
I have one question for Ben, and I just say a site walks would be in order. It would be nice to go put eyes on this. I'm very familiar with Kent's Island. Is it possible the day of the site walk to get beyond the gate on the road over the new bridge there and up the hill, the vehicle?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a biggie for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Woody, at this time?
No, I'm good other than that. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Mick, questions for Ben on this project?
Yeah, no, interesting project. Yeah, I'm relatively familiar with the area. You said as far as the tree removal, you're targeting Norway spruce and was it red pine, southern red pine?
Yep, red pine plantations. Yep.
Yeah, just leftover residual from hand plantings or?
Yeah, so I think the previous owner, I'm not sure when they were planted. I don't know the history of that, but I assume it had something to do with the former residence that was on the island in that time frame. So I'm not sure, but yeah, a lot of the red pine is senescing. There's some that's still alive, but the bittersweet is full on in most of the
Right.
canopies at this point. So
Right, not a lot. Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
I think
okay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, just going back to Mary, what Mary's statement and others, just having that little bit of detail, just kind of what vegetation control methods you're going to use in what areas. I think primarily not, super detailed, but, and then a site walk with you guys and the DCR Forester. That'll be helpful and just kind of understanding the whole breadth of the project. But no, definitely a good project and looking forward to working with you guys on it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Diane, any questions for Ben on this?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So, Ben, from my viewpoint, I'm still hung up on that. We have a requirement. We had an RDA come in for a simple deck on a residential lot. And in order to consider it, we required a stamped site plan, wetland delineation, and proposed and existing conditions. I just don't know how we get away from that on a project of this magnitude. And it's the Commonwealth that's undertaking the project. There's a consistency that I'm always a champion of on the commission. But I throw that out there. Diane, you have your hand up?
No, I misunderstood. I thought they were going to do a wetland delineation. So if that wasn't the case, we had talked about it previously, so I thought that was in there.
We had not accepted GIS type mapping before on standard residential applications. And
no, I meant flagging.
Yeah, I don't think that was actually it was going to be more GIS, and then you were going to map kind of section off based on a visual inspection of and categorize the type of invasives that were there. But it's so Well, why don't we do this? There's going to be a request for a site walk, so we're gonna have to continue this. So let me do this. Are there any other questions from the members before I open this up to the public for public comment? Okay. And Mason, are there any raised hands from the public at this time?
Yep, we have one.
Okay, and Leslie, if you could just identify yourself with your address and make your comment.
Sure, Bob. Leslie Matthews, 111 Main Street. I was considering the size and the proportion of this project. Would any members or non-members of different boards in the community be invited to go on the site walk?
That wouldn't be something we would determine, Leslie. I guess that would be up to the applicant. The purpose of it is more curiosity, because I don't know what other boards would have jurisdiction.
Okay,
It's open to
understood.
the public, so the property's open to the public.
Yeah,
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much.
okay. Well, Leslie, let me ask you this. If we schedule a site visit, do you want us to notify you just so you have that option?
Yeah, I would thoroughly appreciate the invitation to better understand everything that's going on. I just like to be aware of what's going on here in town, and that's my job.
Good point. Leslie, anything else before I go back to some of the other members?
Yeah, everybody have a great evening, and go Eagles.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Mason,
night.
is there any other raised hands from the public?
No, if there's not, but if I could ask one question.
Yeah, certainly, Mason.
Ben, I think you mentioned that you might have been in talks with the fire chief, but I just wanted to confirm that, because I think as a part of the approval process that this needs to, with controlled fires, it needs to be approved by the chief.
It is approved. Yep, we've had meetings with him. We have a signed burn plan. Yeah.
Awesome, great.
Ben, could you get that over to Mason just for the file?
I can definitely, yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, so do any members have a request for a site visit? The answer to that question is yes. What additional information or plan amendment or other additional content are we looking for, just so Ben has a clear picture? On the site visit, it's going to be driven by weather. How's the access out there right now, Ben? I mean, is this something we gotta?
If four-wheel drive vehicles are not a problem to get out there, during king tide, the access road is meant to flood in a few spots, but it's usually less than 6-8 inches of water or ice at this point. But I don't know. There's a few storms coming up here, it sounds like. So I can provide a four-wheel drive truck that can fit 5 people. If anybody needs to get, wants to get past that, walking access is fine, but we can definitely drive in regardless of, as long as we don't get a nor'easter or 2 feet of snow. So.
Yeah, don't even say that.
Yeah.
Don't even say that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we want to, so we're looking for a site visit. So Ben, obviously you're going to have to request a continuance anyway. Because we have to do the site visit, and there are some additional information we're going to need from you. So why don't we get the continuance on the public hearing done first, then we can give you some content, and we'll what other documents we're looking for, and discuss some potential schedules on doing a site visit. So
okay,
all right.
That
So
sounds-
Ben, are you requesting a continuance of the public hearing? Do you want to continue it to our February 18th meeting?
yes.
Okay. Okay, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to February 18th at the applicant's request.
Before we continue the meeting, could I make a comment?
Sure.
Just that you don't have a DEP file number, and right now it says on the website that they're waiting for fee, which you're stating agency you're exempt from the fee, so I don't know if you want to check in with them and
I will. We actually are not exempt, which is odd. I still have to pay with a personal check to them and then wait to get reimbursed from my agency. So that the check was sent, it was sent over a week ago.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's
haven't updated yet.
being processed. Yes. So,
Okay, thanks. I just want to make that point.
yeah.
Okay.
There
Okay,
may be
so
comments from DEP once they issue
Sure.
the number.
again, once we continue this to the
Yes.
18th, they'll, if they don't have a number, then we're gonna have to continue it again and so on. So I guess that interesting question, Ben, when are you looking to mobilize? Is there a time frame that you're looking to, to
So
get
as
this
far
work
as
done?
prescribed fire, it wouldn't be probably until, late fall. So that's not anything real urgent. The cutting of the trees is, it went out to bid. It's not been finalized yet. So that because there's potential for issues across most of Massachusetts for, some of the state listed bats now. All the tree cutting has to be done by April 15th. But most of anything that's under the purview of the commission, we wouldn't do any of that work. It's a very small sliver for the tree clearing. The forest cutting plan stuff is all approved, and that stuff potentially could start by the end of February. So, or middle of February. I'm not really sure. It really depends on contracting and things like that. So,
Okay. All right, so team, we have a motion to continue the public hearing to February 18th at the applicant's request.
So moved.
Mary? Okay, and Woody. Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary?
Yes.
TJ? Excuse me, Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, why don't we do this? Ben, why don't you and Mason come back with a couple of potential dates? And then Mason, you can share them with the committee.
Yep.
Does that make sense, team? Just because the weather factor, not knowing exactly what's coming down? Or do we want to try to schedule this for someday next week, or do we, how tight do you want to have this on the site visit?
if from my point of view, as soon as the commission is able to get out there, would be great with me. So I'll make my schedule work. So, yeah, I mean, I
Yep.
don't I can be flexible with my hours. If you all prefer a non-weekday, then I can make that work potentially as well. So,
Well, typically we do these on the Monday following a meeting at 8 AM or 8:30. Why don't we start there? How does it next Monday or next Tuesday look for everybody?
Just quick, Bob, to interrupt, but I think following up on Mary, didn't we want to have a more detailed plan of vegetation control is going to be applied to what area prior to that site walk, or can we do that concurrent?
No, I
I
think it's a good point.
sure. Whatever the commission would like, but I can potentially get that in the next few days to you all. So, or at the very least have it for the site walk.
That would be helpful. I think that,
Okay.
kind of pushing our site walk, look at those different areas and different methods of control.
Okay, why don't we look at, how does a week from Thursday look for everybody? Just to give
Thursday?
Ben some time. Yeah, I'm just throwing a date out there. Just so that Ben has a chance to get something to us and we can determine whether it's adequate for what we want.
The 13th. That's fine.
So Thursday, the 13th.
Yeah.
How does that work? Mary, would that work for you?
Yep, looks like it'll be a little better tide then. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing. What's the tide schedule on that?
We should be fine.
Okay. Mick, how about you? How does the,
Yeah, the 13th works good, and unless it's a king tide, we should have good access out there. I've been out there plenty.
okay. Woody, how does the
Sounds
13th
good.
work for you?
Sounds good.
Diane, are you back yet from Medford, or are you still?
Hoping for this weekend, Super Bowl party.
I don't remember getting an invitation to that.
That's because I'm not there yet. I'm just hoping.
Okay, Mason, how does that work for you on Thursday, the 13th?
Yep, that sounds good. Just a very minor request with the new email. The emails don't populate. I don't have a contact list anymore. So if you guys don't mind just sending your email in the chat so I could invite you guys, that would be greatly appreciated.
Mason, do you want me just to send you an email with all of our emails on it? Then you can click on
That
them
would be
and
great.
just- Okay. I'll do that for you.
Thank
Ben,
you.
how does the 13th look for you?
The 13th is good. I'm actually have a site visit at 3 p.m. with a vendor that's looking to bid on some of the warm season grass conversion stuff. So I will be up there anyways. So I'm available outside of 3 to 4. I'm available whenever you'd like.
Okay, when's low tide on the 13th? Does
So the
anyone have?
12th is a full moon and the 13th is a 11.5 foot tide at around noon. High tide, so we'll be, it still may be flooded if it's, it may not drain all the way out there
It's gonna be, we're gonna be
between
in
those
Ben.
tides, but we can still get through, I think, at that
Yeah.
time.
Ben's gonna ruin his vehicle, won't be ours, so.
Well, it's a state truck, so.
Yeah,
I don't think
All
it's
right,
a
so-
huge deal, but I can't go if it's in the afternoon, but that's okay. You guys.
well, I think just because of the tide, we're gonna be limited to no later than probably an 8 o'clock. Or maybe a 7:30 on this one, just to
Oh, okay.
get a jump on the tide so that we can get off the island if we're there more than an hour or so. Which it sounds like we may be. So how does the 13th at 7:30 sound for everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Time for me.
all right. Okay, Ben, you've heard we have a varied opinion on the amount of the documentation that you need. I'm just concerned if we don't require a site plan, wetland delineation, and existing and proposed, we set a precedent that will be hard to vary from when a homeowner comes in for a simple deck on a lot. So,
Sure, I can appreciate that. I would just also add that this is the same format that we use for all NOIs across the state. And I understand each commission is unique, but we have had this process and this narrative template approved multiple times. So if the commission would like to speak to other commissions that we've utilized this process, that's something that we could coordinate with. But
mhm.
sure, I mean, understanding that the state and what we're trying to do through this ecological process is different than maybe what a homeowner is doing. And I understand that maybe the consistency is important, but being that we're a state agency trying to do ecological restoration and not really altering or digging in, the resource area, we're just treating invasive plants.
Mhm.
So,
Well, if you were on the call earlier, Lock and Dam had done a full submittal, and it's a restoration project as well with the dam removal. But okay, any other questions for Ben on this one? Okay, Ben, we'll see you on the 13th at 7:30.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Mason, anything else? I'm looking at general discussion on National Grid. Anything else we have other
No.
than that?
No, nothing new.
Team, if you recall, at our last meeting, we received a communication from the select board on a National Grid 21-day notification regarding a right-of-way herbicide application sent to the select board. And it would seem to me that at a minimum, they need to come in just as Keolis did with an RDA. Mary, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow through on that review of that one, so I don't really know. I don't have opinion. Let me just pull up what we've got
Sure.
on the Dropbox for that.
Yeah, it just seems on its face, it's similar to Keolis. They're doing track primarily in a wetland. And National Grid is doing right away. But again, they're using herbicides and.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Right.
They should follow the same process. They're not
Well,
exempt.
again, I think we should be consistent. I mean,
Yeah.
that's right.
Absolutely.
I
Okay.
don't see anything from National Grid in the Dropbox.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Well, you go back to if you go back to the link meeting,
Ah,
all right, what I do is I just keep, if you get one email from me, it has the link from 2 previous meetings, because items get continued, like 286 High Road isn't in our 2-4 Dropbox, but I sent you the link for when it was. So if you click on the previous January meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
National Grid docs. This is just their yearly operation plan notice. Right, so there's it sounds like they may already have a permit.
Well, actually, and they sent a memorandum of law about why this project is exempt from Newbury
Right.
Conservation Commission review. It just seems strange that National Grid would be exempt, but Keolis would not be.
Yep.
But-
There's something about,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have Mason, why don't
Yeah,
you follow
that's-
up with this with a broad brush? It would seem that an RDA should be required.
Mhm.
None of us are lawyers here. I shouldn't say that, Diane.
not in this
You-
stuff.
But why don't you review this with either Lisa or Tracy?
Okay,
And if it's exempt, then it's a closed matter. If we question the memorandum of law on it being exempt, then I think our position would be an RDA submittal, similar to Keola.
what I think it is they have a 5-year vegetation management plan. And I seem to recall that they got an RDA for that. And then this is just the yearly operation plan that they need to notify us each year of the 5-year vegetation management plan. So that
Okay.
we'll have to track that down.
Yeah, so Mason,
Just
if you can locate and send over the RDA, if there is one,
Yep.
that would certainly, you would think that would have been part of the submittal, actually, if they had an RDA.
yep, I'll go looking for that.
Okay. All right, team, anything else? Staff reports? Mason?
Nope, nothing at this time.
Okay. Last comments, Woody, anything you wanna add to the discussion?
No,
It's-
I'm good. Thank you, Bob.
It's
Thank you for
7:28, we
giving-
got 2 minutes to waste. Diane, how about you?
No,
the
got
Super-
nothing.
When is the Super Bowl party? Mary wants to know.
It's Sunday sometime.
Uh,
I'll probably be cleaning
Yeah,
dust
Mick,
off of my windows.
Mick, any comments you wanna,
No,
add?
I am good.
Okay,
I'm meeting out.
okay.
After
Now, Mary, if Diane isn't having a Super
full
Bowl
8 hours of
party,
motion today, so.
now, Mary, if Diane isn't a Super Bowl party, are you and Dave hosting one, or just?
But we have no dog in the fight here, so.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't
You
care
know,
what's
I'm with you, Mary. It's hard to get excited when you
Yeah.
really don't have a
yeah, I don't care
home
either.
team. But,
But the
Okay.
commercial,
well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so moved.
Second,
Okay, Mary. Okay, roll call, all in favor.
yes.
Mary, Woody, Mick, Diane, and
Aye.
Bob Connors.
Hi.
Yes.
Thanks,
Yes.
Bob.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
See you
you.
guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Meeting adjourns at 7:29.
Perfect.